And Clem to and everyone. Hope you're having a good day. We're having a overcast, sort of sunny day, but no precipitation coming down, so that's good. Clem too. I don't know. I think you're probably still having snow and stuff coming down, so you're really going through it. Late winter storm. Hope it clears up soon for you. We've been going through the Ten Commandments, God's top 10 list of good behavior, and we've gotten to number 7. Thou shalt not divorce, or divorce, thou shalt not commit adultery. And we've looked at how all of these, including this one, are about so much more than just the simple little command that's before us. In each case, you can look at that. So even children honor your parents is really about the value of family and the importance of the role of the child to the parent and the parent to the child. And we looked through all of that. And so we're on thou shalt not commit adultery. And we're looking about how it's really a statement about how God values marriage. And I just want to quickly look at that again, because we're going to come to the downside in just a second here. But Jesus had very strong words to say about not committing adultery, precisely because marriage was so important. And why is marriage so important? Well, there's a couple places in the New Testament where the human institution of marriage is likened to that of Christ to the church. And so there's something very holy and special about marriage, because it's supposed to give a good marriage is supposed to give insight into the relationship of Christ, Jesus Christ, to his church, the people of his church. Down here in Genesis 1:27, we looked at this the other day. So God created mankind in his image. I want to say this. If I can get this stop sharing. I want to say this. Human beings are the only thing created in the image of God. And all of the things that God created, they're the only thing in all of creation that is meant to reflect the image of God. There's lots of things in nature that reflect certain things about God. Romans chapter 1 says, first of all, that he's very powerful and that he's eternal. But that's just a small part of who God is. Human beings themselves, not animals, not birds, not fish, not the sun, not stars, nothing. Only human beings are meant to reflect the image of God to other human beings. And so when we come back here now to this verse that we're looking at, so God created mankind in his own image. This is critical important. And in the image of God, he created them, not him. He did not create him, Adam. He created them, Adam and Eve. Both were created. One was created from the dirt of the ground, and one was created from the rib of a man, but both of them were created by God. Neither one was born in the normal human sense, but both were created and formed by God in his image. And so together, male and female, he created them. Together, they fully express the image of God. And so this makes marriage so very, very important. But I don't want to hide behind a shared screen here. Life is not perfect. Life does not always go according to plan. We don't always behave the way we ought to behave. And we know that. And none of us are perfect. So nothing I'm saying is dumping on anybody or any situation that you happen to have found yourself in. I grew up in a family where our parents split up and ultimately divorced. So I kind of know this from the inside out, from the child's perspective. I'm grateful that I've never experienced it from the other side. But I grew up with this, and I have a few thoughts about this. People are not perfect. Marriages are not perfect. And we talked about the other day how even in a good marriage, it's hard work. But sometimes people do stupid things. And we sometimes call it they made a mistake. And they did make a mistake, a rather large mistake. they had a weak moment or whatever, or sometimes it's a long-standing thing, but sometimes people pursue happiness with pleasure with somebody other than their spouse, adultery, and it causes great damage to the marriage relationship because the expectations in marriage are so very high. This is the pinnacle of the relationship structure that God had created. And so we naturally have very high expectations. It's where we're meant to be able to be the most vulnerable and the most open and the most exposed to another human being. It's the place where ideally we're meant to put the most trust in another human being. And so when a betrayal happens in divorce, it's very traumatic. And so what are we to do in that moment? We're 6 minutes in and I'm just getting to the question. What are we to do in that moment? Couple things to remember. And this is something that really requires a lot of time. And I'm giving this a 10-minute window. So I'm not doing fairness to this. But if you happen to find yourself in this situation, I always ask a couple that I'm counseling, and primarily I'll start with the spouse that was hurt by the adultery, and I'll ask him or her, what do you want from this? Where do you want to go with the situation? Do you want to try to keep things together, or do you want to separate and end the relationship? Jesus said in Matthew chapter 5, it has been said, anyone who divorces his wife must give her a certificate of divorce. But I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife, except for sexual immorality, adultery, makes her or him the victim of adultery, and anyone who marries a divorced woman commits adultery. God did say in Malachi chapter 2 that he hates divorce. He doesn't hate divorced people. He hates the concept of divorce because this relationship is so holy and special that it's like violence against the institution of marriage. It's meant to reflect who God is. But this is life. This is where we sometimes land. I'm not dumping on anybody. This is where we sometimes land. And so God is simply saying, it grieves my heart deeply when people end up in this situation. Jesus is saying marriage is meant to be forever and to work out the difficulties that come along. But some, in fact, one is so great that even though I hate divorce, I'm going to allow it in this situation. And that's for marital unfaithfulness. So I start by asking a couple, where do you want to go from here? What do you want to do? If you want to keep the marriage together, it's going to take a lot of work because of the damage that was done, and be prepared for a lot of work on both partners' perspective. And we're not trying to do a whole course on this right here. I'm just giving an overview. But regardless of what you choose, and I'm not going to condemn you for choosing one or the other because Jesus allowed both. So I'm not going to dump on you if you choose one or you choose the other. In either case, one of the things that the hurt party needs to do is they have to at some point come to a place of forgiving their spouse, whether that's forgiving and divorcing your spouse or forgiving and trying to reconcile the relationship. Forgiveness has to happen because the alternative is a type of bitterness that sets in, that's a cancer. That's one of the things I observed about my mother. I have great respect for my mom and how she kept us all together through all those years after my parents broke up, and the hardness of the situation that she had to work through as a single mom. I have a lot of respect for her to this day. We were never farmed out to other people as brothers and sisters. We were never split up. We were always together. And I am forever grateful for that. But one of the things I noticed in my own mother's life is that she allowed bitterness because of the situation to set in. And I could tell you stories about how as insensitive teen boys, and there's sometimes we would just like try to get a rise out of our mom. All we had to say was, "Oh, I saw Dad the other day." No, what's true is we almost never saw Dad. We could go a year or more without seeing our dad, but we might say, "Hey, I saw Dad the other day," and Mom would just immediately fly off the handle because she had allowed bitterness from the situation to become like a cancer in her life, and she eventually worked through that, and I'm grateful that she did. But I say that because I've lived through this, as I said, from a child's perspective. And I can tell you, whether you choose in the case of marital unfaithfulness to go down the route of divorce, or if you go down the route of reconciliation, either one is really going to need for you to work towards the place of forgiving your spouse for what they did. It's good for the family. It's good for you. It's good because it honors God. It's good because it's healthy, but it's not easy. And it's not necessarily something that happens today. Today is the best day, but being human, it's not always the day that it happens, but it has to be the goal that we work towards in this kind of a situation. So anyway, these are very sensitive matters, and I've gone a little longer, but you can't deal with them too too short of a time period. It has to be said. As I said the other day, adultery is not the unforgivable sin. There's a list of 10 things there in the 10 commandments, and we can look at any of the others in there and we can say, yeah, God would forgive that. Honor your father and your mother. How many of us, well, probably every one of us at some point as a child or even as an adult, did not honor our mother and father? Is forgiveness available for that moment? Absolutely. You shall not commit a murder. Horrible crime. Is forgiveness available? Absolutely. You shall not steal. Can you be forgiven? Absolutely. You shall not lie. Can you be forgiven? Yes, you can. You shall not covet. Can you be forgiven? Yes, you can. Do not think that you shall not commit adultery. It's like an unforgivable sin. If you've done it, seek the Lord's forgiveness for that. And he will forgive you for that. If there's true repentance in your heart for what happened, he will forgive you for that. And then your world will be devastated. Your world will be broken. But God can begin to put the pieces back together with you to move your life forward. And again, if you're on the other end of things, forgiveness is just the path that you'll need to arrive at in order to be able to live an emotionally healthy life. So I think I'm going to stop there. Heavy stuff. Sorry to do that to you on a Friday before you head into the weekend, but this is the reality of life. Life is not perfect. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. None of us are perfect. And we have to work through the issues of our imperfect behavior along the way. So having said that, I hope you do have a good weekend, and I look forward to, Lord willing, seeing you all on Monday.